After yesterday's guilty verdicts in the Chauvin trial, the family of George Floyd came out to speak to the press, and one after the other. It was interesting. They expressed gratitude to all the people who had made those verdicts possible, to the prosecutors who worked to present the case, the people who supported the family through this last terrible year. In particular, though, they all thanked Americans who protested, people who took to the streets in the weeks and months after George Floyd's death, who thereby kept George Floyd's memory alive, who kept the pressure on, who demanded justice in response to his killing. The family, one after another, credited those protests for ensuring that there would be some measure of accountability for his murder, which is why you might put it in the category of shocking but not surprising to see this headline in the New York Times today. Quote, GOP bills target protesters and absolve motorists who hit them. Here's the lead of the story. Here's the top of it. Quote, Republican legislators in Oklahoma and Iowa have passed bills granting immunity to drivers whose vehicles strike and injure protesters in public streets. A Republican proposal in Indiana would bar anyone convicted of unlawful assembly from holding state employment, including elected office. A Minnesota bill would prohibit those convicted of unlawful protesting from receiving student loans, unemployment benefits, or housing assistance. The measures are part of a wave of new anti-protest legislation sponsored and supported by Republicans in the 11 months since Black Lives Matter protests swept the country following the death of George Floyd. But while Democrats seized on Mr. Floyd's death last year to highlight racism and policing and other forms of social injustice, Republicans responded to a summer of protests by proposing a raft of punitive new measures governing the right to lawfully assemble. Republican lawmakers in 34 states have introduced 81 different anti-protest bills. And it is Florida, blessed Florida, that is really leading the way here. This week, on Monday, as the jury started deliberating in the Derek Chauvin trial, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, flanked by an all-white crowd of fellow Republican officials, made Florida the first state in the nation to actually sign into law one of these bills granting immunity to drivers who drive into protesters on a road. Florida law now basically gives you a get out of lawsuits free card if you run your car into protesters, provided the people that you hit with your car were engaged in a riot at the time. Now, you may ask, what exactly does riot mean in this circumstance? When does a protest become a riot? Well, helpfully, this new bill also massively expands the definition of what it means to riot in the state of Florida. It now only takes 3 people to make a riot now in Florida. The law also creates a whole new felony category of rioting. It creates a whole new crime called mob intimidation. It makes the crime of blocking a highway a felony offense. And just for good measure, the law denies bail to arrested protesters, and it creates new protections for Confederate monuments because it wasn't on the nose enough already. Harsh new penalties for protesting, new protections for Confederate monuments. It's a felony to block a highway, and immunity for drivers who plow into protesters. Florida Democrats tried in vain to stop this bill. They pointed, among other things, to the death of Heather Heyer, who was killed while protesting against the white nationalist neo-Nazi gathering in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. Would the neo-Nazi guy who drove his car into the protesters there and killed Heather Heyer, would he have been protected under this new law? That's terrifying, right? Which is the whole point. To make protesting feel like too much of a risk. Not only because you could be arrested and charged with a felony for all sorts of stuff that doesn't seem like a felony, but also because drivers who might be hostile to you for whatever reason or just scared of you will know they have special legal protections if they deliberately run you down with their car. A federal lawsuit filed today against Governor DeSantis and other Florida officials claims that this new law is unconstitutional for exactly that reason, because it redefines protected First Amendment speech as rioting. It uses the threat of excessive penalties to hinder free speech. We'll see if this law survives in the courts. It's probably an important indicator that it's already been the source of the subject of a lawsuit when it was only signed 2 days ago. But just step back from this a little bit. I mean, think about where we are as a country right now, what we have just been through with this gut-wrenching trial for the murder of George Floyd, this collective sigh of relief among so many Americans that there was a guilty verdict in that case. Everybody from George Floyd's family to activists to faith leaders to elected officials up to and including the president talking about the need for police reform and racial justice legislation so we can stop the cycle of these things constantly happening. In our generation, we could stop it somehow. We could stop telling ourselves that it's inevitable. We could take action to stop it. And then Republicans across the country have decided that what their priority is in this environment is to crack down on protesters and protect people who ram their cars into them. This bill in Florida was House Bill 1. It was their first priority. The very first bill that Republicans worked on in this session. It was the top of their agenda. After Florida's governor signed the new law, Democratic state lawmakers held a press conference of their own on the steps of the state capitol. State Senator Shevrin Jones opened the event by talking about priorities.
Show me where you place your time and energy, and I'll show you your priorities. Our response to injustices in this country is protest. But their response is to criminalize it when the recourse for us is to turn to the streets to make our voices heard in this unjust system. Governor DeSantis' actions today goes to show that he's not concerned about the lives of black and brown people who so happen to be citizens of this diverse state that many of us call home. He ignored us today and our cries from the Senate floor and also from the House floor. If he was concerned, he would have addressed the killings of black men by the hands of police officers.
That is Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones, who joins us live now. Senator Jones, thank you so much for making time to be here tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you for having me today.
So first, let me just ask you if I got anything wrong in the way I described this new law in your state, or if there's anything I missed that you think we should know about this. I'm obviously looking at this from outside, considering it in the context of a lot of other states seeming to follow Florida's lead. Did I screw any of that up?
No, you did not screw any of it up. And I also would like to add that the bill also hinders local government from having the ability to be able to alter any of their public safety budgets, which definitely ties the hands. So now you put a nonpartisan bodies, their decisions in the hand of a partisan governor. Which is unfortunate. And because of this, many of our cities and municipalities have spoken out against this, to saying that how do we alter our budgets if we need to put dollars in another silo? We can't. Now we have to go to the governor's office to try to do that. So you were spot on.
So public safety budgets in local communities around the state are now restricted by order of the governor. Local authorities are not allowed to make changes in their budgets around public safety issues without getting essentially permission from him.
That's correct. And he also said in his press with Laura Ingraham on Fox News yesterday that anyone who was against this legislation, these were the same individuals who wants to defund police. Well, by mind you, let's be extremely clear about something. In the district in which I represent, which is the largest black district within the state of Florida, the third largest in the country, there is serious concern when these cities have to alter their budgets to be able to put dollars in other silos. And I'm sure there are other cities across the state of Florida who fall into this category. So yes, what the governor has done, he's literally has preempt the ability for cities to be able to alter their budgets, and they have to go through him. One of the things that is, I think, that is most shocking about this bill, and you saw that it made the headline in the New York Times today, is this idea that this Republican bill, and now state law in Florida, singles out people who use their cars to run over protesters for a specially designated form of immunity. I mean,
the freaking Al-Qaeda magazine, when it used to exist, used to advise Al-Qaeda adherents that a great way to terrorize lots of Americans is to use a readily available large tool, namely a car or truck, to run down Americans as a way of committing terrorist attacks in this country. By putting such a spotlight on that and singling it out for immunity, are there concerns that this is creating a clear and present current public safety threat around that type of way of hurting people?
Absolutely. It does create a threat. That situation happened in Miami last year during the demonstrations of the George Floyd riot. Someone drove their car in Miami through a crowd of demonstrators. Under this current law that we're looking at right now, that individual can ask for immunity in that. And so, and let's be extremely clear that the governor has created a piece of legislation that no one has asked for. Instead of the governor doing what needs to be done to protect the lives of Black people within this state, who is included within the 22 million people in the state of Florida, you begin to create these other penalties that will do nothing but to create more individuals to be in our criminal justice system and can continue to clog up our jails. So it does nothing.
Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad this is getting national attention. It'll be interesting to see how this fares in the courts with this lawsuit against it already. Sir, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm looking forward to this going to the highest courts to call the governor out on his foolishness.
I think you can count on it. Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.